So there are new details tonight about the alleged ties between the Clintons, Moscow, and the highly controversial Uranium One deal. An FBI source on the Hill today telling members of Congress that Russia paid millions of dollars to a U.S. lobbying firm in hopes of influencing then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Peter Ducey with that story live on Capitol Hill tonight. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Martha. An FBI informant is now talking to congressional investigators about a paper trail that he says shows at least $750,000, $750,000 of Russian influence over then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. The informant's name is Douglas Campbell, and he claims that the Kremlin hired a lobbying firm called APCO Worldwide to essentially make Russian uranium more attractive to U.S. regulators. Here's what Mr. Campbell, the informant and whistleblower, says. Quote, the contract called for 4 payments of $750,000 over 12 months. APCO was expected to give assistance free of charge to the Clinton Global Initiative as part of their effort to create a favorable environment to ensure the Obama administration made affirmative decisions on everything from Uranium One to the U.S.-Russia Civilian Nuclear Cooperation Agreement. But that lobbying firm now claims that that timeline does not add up. APCO Worldwide says this. APCO Worldwide undertook client work on behalf of 10X in 2010 and 2011. It undertook work for the Clinton Global Initiative from 2008 to 2016. These projects were totally separate and unconnected in any way. All APCO's actions on these 2 unconnected activities were publicly documented from the outset, legally proper and entirely ethical. Any assertion otherwise is false and unfounded. The informant's attorney, though, Victoria Tenzing, said this morning that something does not add up, and she points to a questionable decision by the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States.
What people really ought to be looking at is why was this CFIUS decision made? On its face, it's not a good decision. But when you consider the fact that Bill Clinton got $500,000 4 months before the decision was made, and the Clinton Foundation got $145 million from the people who gained when their stock rose after the Uranium One purchase went through, I think it takes some looking into.
The informant says that he went undercover, met with key players with a video camera, and that the FBI has seen the footage, so it does seem like all this talk about a grand global corruption scheme is just scratching the surface. Martha.
Interesting. Peter, thank you very much. Joining me now, David Bossie, president of Citizens United and a Fox News contributor, and Marie Harf, a Fox News analyst and former State Department spokesperson. So, Marie, I know that you know, the take on the Democratic side of this equation is that this is old news. It's been dealt with. The timeline is wrong. But, you know, this guy Campbell spoke to these different panels today and told his story. He was an informant. He was there. So isn't it legitimate to hear him out and see if there's anything to it?
Well, Martha, the FBI also determined that this informant was not credible, and that's why they stopped working with him. They did not think he was giving them good information.
Like Christopher Steele, right?
And the
I mean,
well,
no, I mean,
it's
the
totally
same,
different.
Right?
But look, on Uranium One, there is also zero evidence that any of us have seen that Hillary Clinton was involved in any way with the decision to approve that deal. There were 9 members of the committee. They voted unanimously. Believe me, having worked at the State Department, these CFIUS decisions are taken way below the secretary's level, and there's no evidence that she was involved in it in any way, shape, or form. And you heard the statement from APCO, who said, this lobbying firm, who said, this just isn't true.
Yeah, no, that's all laid out pretty clearly. There's still the hundreds of millions of dollars, David Bossie, that the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation received from Russia. And when you think about how panicked everyone is now about Russia, it just is interesting to look back to that time period and say, wow, this was the reset period. President Obama was saying, you know, the 80s call, they want your foreign policy back, how silly it is to be any concern at all about Russia. And maybe that's more the frame in which all of this happened.
I think, Martha, this is a very good question. What this informant is talking about definitely needs to be looked into, but it needs to be part of a much bigger investigation into the Clinton Foundation, the pay-for-play schemes, this $500,000 that Bill Clinton was receiving 4 months before the decision, whether it's any of these other ancillary issues and big ones like the Clinton email server. So I've been calling for many months, and you and I have talked about this, that we need to have a special counsel to investigate this. And I think that this person's claims, these charges that he brings, will be should be investigated by an independent arbiter of the facts and let the chips fall where they may. And I think that is the only way to get the American people to understand that the Clinton investigation, because now we see between Loretta Lynch and all of the rest that it was swept under the rug by James Comey and others. And I think that we need to have the American people understand this is a fair investigation.
Yeah, I mean, Marie, just in terms of the effort to, open up business relationships at that point, right? That was clearly on the table, and the encouragement of that. I think you do have to, given the concerns that are out there today, look back at all of this and say, were we kind of being played with some of this? No?
Well, I've said repeatedly, and I'll say again tonight, if I were the Clintons, I would not have run the foundation the way they did, given she was Secretary of State and given she was definitely running for president. So I am not going to defend that. But I'm also not going to defend the leap then to some sort of, conspiracy theory by some out there that every dollar they got for something then went into the State Department in terms of influencing policy. I think that it was clear by 2016 that for many reasons the Russians hated Hillary Clinton, and there are a lot of reasons behind that. And so while we should get answers on all these other questions, looking forward, which is the most important thing, Russia is still threatening our democracy. We should focus on that more than anything else and how to prevent it from happening again.
And I think that part of that is that we need to find out what collusion the Clinton campaign had with the Russians. So because they were obviously paying for and financing the Steele dossier and working with the Russians. And look, Adam Schiff just got played by the Howard Stern of Russia. Okay, so we are seeing
they're clearly
they're
coming
so
at all
desperate.
sides to see where the vulnerabilities might exist. Thanks, you guys. Great to see you both tonight.
Thanks, Martha.